Hello YouTube, back again for another video. I've been asked by, I believe it's a subscriber, someone called, channel name is Black Hill, who asked me a question about, that he stated that he was interested in why I profiled these two buck 110's. And I've been waiting for someone to ask me that for it feels like years. So here I am with the video. Because I think, you know, stupid is as stupid does, and clever is as clever does, and this is one of my clever days. I won't state how I got to it, it's a bit too long of a story, but let's just try to keep on point with why I did reprofiled these knives, and why the whole concept of them and stuff, because I've carved a lot of things with these knives. I'll show you some of the things I've carved with them. Again, I'm having trouble uploading, so I'm probably going to have to split this video into multiple sections to upload it. So prepare for a part 2 and 3. But first of all, the buck 110, it's obviously a very sturdy knife. A lot of people, wood carvers, won't carve with, well, they won't carve with slip joints for a start, but a lot of people don't like carving with even locking knives. They always go for fixed blades because they're not robust enough. Now I knew this, just look at that, I've been carving for years with this. There's no movement on that one. I think there's a slight bit of movement on this one. Yeah, tiny bit. So I wanted something robust, something reasonably priced, a good steel, which I've had a buck Vanguard before, and I thought that steel was okay. That was a 420 HC. Comes with a sheath as well, but it's a clip point. And I thought a clip point's about as pointy a knife as I could find on the market. It's got to be pointy. Now, let me show you some of these other clip points here that I've sharpened, and you can compare them. That's the left grind, yeah, that's the most pointiest one I've got. You see how even these, so I could have got some off the shelf. See that again, that's got even more belly. These are seconds, and the most pointiest one I've been able to find was no, it's that one. That one there's the most pointy of the lot. But can you see how they're not that pointy? Actually, is that, have I got my, yeah, that one is, that's the most pointy one. Can you see? It's still not pointy enough for what I wanted. So that's why I reprofiled them. Now, but also what I wanted was the hollow ground. Can you see how that, well, let me put it where it was before. So you can see that's the 90 side, that's the big beveled side, that's the fine beveled side. Now I've lost a little bit of my edge geometry here. I would have preferred the hollow point to have gone right up as far up here as possible. The same with that knife. It's not quite as good as it would be if it was the natural shape, like this one here. Can you see I've been able to go, that's how I'd have liked it, but obviously I can't because I reprofiled the knife. That's how it should be, really. You know, if I was a knife designer, obviously I would make this how pointy the knife would be with the hollow ground going right up, and then I could get this effect. Right, pointy. So why do you need it so pointy? It's got to be able to turn. There's a thing called internal radii. This is probably a really extreme example of it. If I want to take wood out of here, look how difficult it is. What I've got to do, see that? I've got to negotiate in there. If the knife's too big, what happens is the spine just catches on the work and it pushes itself out. You've got to be able to turn freely, so you need something pointy, but only if it's that specific type of work where you've got tight turns, where you've got difficult wood, then you need pointy. You can do without pointy to a certain extent, which I've just really demonstrated with some of the things I've carved with other knives. You can do away with pointy if you keep to straight and nothing too difficult. Let's show you an example. You know, something. Actually, I've got loads of See, that's just, I've got some other stuff, but they're covered over. But see that, you could do this part with the normal knives, but when you get to here, tight turn, there's a little bit more difficult, and even these parts here, that's where you need pointiness. But this is the thing about these knives, why they've got this. I mean, I was tempted to call it a yin and yang grind. Can you see? One left, one right. I mean, looking at it like that, it looks a little bit yin and yang, doesn't it? But what it is a 50-50 blade. Let's get you a 50-50. You know, I've been doing some carving with this lately. That's roughly a 50-50 blade. Not quite, because I've this side's probably a little bit steeper, but that's roughly a 50-50 blade. Now what a 50-50 blade does, it has what's called neutral steering. When it cuts something, it wants to go straight because both bevels are equal on each side. So it's like a rudder of a boat rudder, really. It will, if both bevels are equal, then it will steer straight. If one bevel's bigger than the other, then it will veer off one way or the other. Now, these are the extreme example. These have got what's called extreme steering, because they've got the large bevel on one side. They want to veer off one way or the other. So the left hand, let's put them in, this is the left hand grind, wants to go that way, clockwise in my right hand, and obviously and the left wants to go anti-clockwise in my right hand. So you see, you have, if you had 3 knives, one neutral, and these 2 knives, you've got all bases covered. Because a lot of the time, and I'll show you some of the lesser examples here. Yeah, well, I'll just show you on this. It was a knife axe handle, but it's probably going to be a knife soon. When I come down, if I'm holding the work like this, I want to come down. I actually want to go around a corner, which is anti-clockwise. So if I take my left knife, this one here, I've got a knife that wants to steer the same way as I want to make the cut, and that was my thinking. And if you say, well, why do you need 2? Well, sometimes you can't actually come at the wood, especially if you've got a tiny little piece of work. I'll show you some of the pieces that I carved, and that's knife finished with these knives. You see, sometimes you just can't hold the work the way you want to, and sometimes the other knife comes in handy. Generally the right grind will do most of the time for me. I mean, like if you were doing sort of traditional spoon like this, then as you're coming down the neck, see, this is the right grind. That's just right, working towards you to curve round into a spoon. That's not the best example. Yes, someone tight turn like this, you see. And you see, I haven't got any room for error. When you're coming down here, this thinness, you need to be very accurate. You can't start overshooting and going into work. You need to get a clean cut, because you haven't got many chances when you start to get this thin to not get it right. And again, you can only take so much out with sandpaper. So this, obviously, when you're in a tight turn there, this blade wants to turn the same way as I want to go, as I want to make the cut. And that's why these grinds are good. But not only that, there's another thing that doesn't quite occur, it's not entirely obvious, is when you're turning, when I'm coming down the neck there of that spoon, I'm turning in, making a little grind, I've got the big bevel on this side, but I've got a small bevel going into a hollow ground. Well, that hollow ground does actually accommodate, because it's the wood shaving, you're trying to reduce as much as you can with wood carving the wedging action of your cuts. When you're trying to get a clean cut, you're after a knife that's as little wedgy as possible. That's one of the reasons why compound bevels will not carve wood, because you just cannot get a clean cut on them. It's one of the reasons. So the hollow ground and the small bevel also helps in the turn. in accommodating the shaving, just the least prizing action as possible. Another thing you need to understand about this grind is, I've explained this before, you've got what's called the bite angle. I'll get it on this piece here. That's the angle at which the knife, or the inner bevel, will start to bite into the wood. Can you see it? And that's what I think of. That's my working angle. But also, as you turn out, the more inward you are, the more with the grain you are, the better. Obviously, it's a better working angle. You're more likely to get clean cuts. And one of the reasons for that is, as you turn out, you're also turning this outer bevel. Now, this is the ejection bevel. That ejects the shaving. And that, obviously, as you turn out, you're ejecting the shaving more violently, more acutely at an angle, and then you're risking that prizing, that wedging action. And what you get a lot with compound bevels is when you cut, is the wood will split ahead of the edge, so you can't get a clean cut. Another reason why compound bevels don't carve wood. And also, if I was to put a compound bevel on this knife here, let's say this was someone's knife, they couldn't resharpen it convex, so they just took a machine to it and put a compound bevel on. What would happen is the bite angle would turn out. It'll only be fractional, barely notice it, but you'll notice it when you're wood carving. It's a bit like a fine adjustment to a car or something. You know, to look at it, you can't see any difference, but you can feel it when you drive. It's the same sort of thing. So that's what a compound bevel does. Not only does it turns out the bite angle, and because 50% of the bevel's on this side, it also ejects the shaving too acutely, and you get this prizing ahead of the edge action, which is just a big no-no for wood carving. So that's the main reasons why I use these grinds, why I reprofiled these Buck 110's, partly because of the quality, again because they were clip point, and then I reprofiled them more because the clip point just isn't pointy enough. It's just too much belly. It's too orientated towards general purpose or hunting. You know, you need belly to open up, you know, a gut or whatever, don't you? Skinning belly's handy, and pointiness isn't, because you're allowed to punch the gut or whatever. But for wood carving, pointy the better. Need to be strong. Had to be safe. Had to have a really strong locking mechanism. These knives are so sturdy. They're very, you know, when you use them, they feel almost like a fixed blade. In fact, they're probably stronger than some fixed blades. And this grind, this a spherical grind, let's call it, for those reasons that I've explained. Extreme steering. Steering is handy because you can utilize the blade to turn the same way as you want to cut, and you don't get that with a 50-50 blade like that. So that's more like the blade there. I mean, this knife is far sharper than these knives. These knives will not push cut a rizzle paper like that knife will. Well, not far sharper, but that is really sharp. But it doesn't matter. This blade, you know, and I've got this blade made that. I had to use a bit of sandpaper, mind you, but it started to come unstuck here, and some of these parts down here, they actually, this part here, it's coming to its limit with something like this. I would have struggled actually to have got clean cuts on some of these dips here, some of these difficult parts, like there, and there, to match up the layers. I was struggling with this knife, not only because it's not pointy enough, but because it has no steering. It's a neutral. It wants to go straight all the time when I want to go curved. So that's what you've got to understand about knives like this. They're fine, you know. I made this with that edge. I'll show you some other ones just in case you haven't seen my video. I mean, This is knife finished, so I made this blade. I mean, again, it's not very pointed, but it has the same grind as these knives have, but without the reprofiling. See, it's a small bevel on this side. This is hollow ground tapering into flat ground, so you might or might not be able to see. Yes, see, it flicks up, the edge goes, the bevel flicks up higher towards the point. That's because it's going from a deep hollow ground into a flat ground. And that's the large bevel, like that bevel there. And again, you can see the bevel rises up. I think you can see. Actually, get some light on it. See if that's helpful. So that's the same grind, and you can see this is fully knife finished. So, you know, something with the right grind on, most knives that are reasonably pointy can carve wood to a fairly high standard. Everything is done by the knife on this, apart from sandpaper to do the blade and to take off the edges. And I just shaped it a little bit, but all this is knife finished. I took out all the marks from the sandpaper with this knife. It is a really capable wood carving knife because it has a wood carving grind on it, and a spherical wood carving grind, not not a compound grind. It's a convex, hand convex grind. I mean,